Today's episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. That's a big deal. We are a nonprofit. We are always looking for services that are free that can help us reach more of the community in an easy way. There are also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and much more. Plus, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. The only thing that you have to do is get out there and record. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Build, the podcast where we talk about building strength, stability, and self-reliance through affordable housing. I'm your host, Kirsten Pittman, Community Outreach Coordinator for Central Valley Habitat for Humanity right here in Bridgewater, Virginia. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of affordable housing. We'll discuss the ins and outs of the affordable housing crisis through the lens of a housing nonprofit, and also why home ownership is such an issue today. Record-breaking numbers of families cannot afford a decent place to live, but what exactly is the affordable housing crisis? Maybe we should start with defining what affordable housing actually means, because the word affordable can mean a lot of different things to people of many different income levels. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development defines an affordable dwelling as one that a household can obtain for 30% or less of its income. For reference, let's assume we have a single-parent household working full-time and making minimum wage in Virginia. The minimum wage here has recently been increased to $9.50 an hour. Not accounting for taxes or other items deducted from the paycheck, this parent is probably making approximately $1,520 each month. To fit into the definition of affordable housing, this same parent shouldn't be paying more than $456 a month on housing to stay under that 50% and at the 30% level. This is assuming that they don't have dependents that need their own space. In our local city, Harrisonburg, the average studio apartment is $925 a month. This is not a sustainable difference for low-income families and individuals, especially the ones like we have in our program that really just are looking for a place to call their own. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, 75% of all extremely low-income families pay more than half their income on rent, and nationally there is a shortage of more than 7 million affordable homes for our nation's 11 million plus extremely low-income families. This is a serious problem. These statistics aren't just national. They apply to local families in our area as well, as families seeking assistance have very few options. Rampant amounts of people that can't afford housing leads to not only poor financial and mental health for these individuals, but a significantly increased likelihood that they can and will become homeless sometime in the future. We're going to examine why this is important. We talked about what the affordable housing crisis is, but the effects it has on the low-income families caught in a cycle of poverty are the real meat of the issue. According to Stanford economist Raj Chetty, children who moved to lower poverty neighborhoods saw their earnings as adults increase by approximately 31%, an increased likelihood of living in better neighborhoods as adults, and a lowered likelihood of becoming a single parent. We also know that this especially has an effect on the mental health and opportunities of children in these situations, as they showed an increased performance in school and a higher likelihood of taking chances to learn when they have a stable home life. Consider this. You are a child with a test tomorrow at school. You go home and your parent is arguing with the landlord on the phone about being late on the rent in an apartment where there aren't enough bedrooms, so you sleep on the couch. You do your homework on the living room table, try to study in a common area that everyone in the house shares, and then sleep on the couch before heading off to school the next day for a test. That's a pretty chaotic environment. Whereas another child that is able to come home, go to their room, study without distractions, and sleep in their own space has a higher likelihood of performing better on the same exact exam. This may seem like kind of an unlikely scenario, but it's actually one that's fairly common. We have many Habitat families that when they were living in substandard housing that didn't meet their needs, they had children sleeping in the living room on the couch and then going to school the next day. So while this may seem unlikely, it's actually more common than the average person actually thinks. We know that someone raised in poverty is at a direct disadvantage and more likely themselves to stay in poverty. The rate of those able to break the cycle and move to middle class and beyond drops to only 13% of people after 7 or more years in poverty. This rate sharply declines after each year a family spends out of poverty and their children are less likely to enter the cycle. Going back to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, 75% of all extremely low-income families are severely cost-burdened, paying more than half their income on rent. As we mentioned in the previous episodes, individuals in this situation have few options, and the housing that they can afford, even at 50% of their monthly income, is often substandard, unsafe, undermaintained, overpriced, and unstable. There often isn't much wiggle room or forgiveness from landlords for families in these circumstances. During COVID, multiple states and the federal government attempted eviction bans to curb the surge of homelessness sure to occur when millions of Americans lost their job at the start of quarantine. However, these bans offered little protection and in some cases were actually struck down in court, such as the case recently in D.C. According to The Hill, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. struck down the ban that froze evictions, but then delayed the enforcement of her ruling to allow the CDC more time to combat COVID. However, when this does go into effect, we may be looking at large amounts of pending evictions coming to the surface. Eviction Lab, an online eviction tracking system that monitors 5 states and 29 cities nationwide, shows that during the pandemic, landlords filed for 366,655 evictions as of June 5th, 2021. Families that we partner with in our program are the prime demographic likely to be affected by evictions that lead to homelessness. If you want to look at the metrics on eviction rates that they've been tracking, their website is evictionlab.org. We've established what the affordable housing crisis is and why it's important. But how is our program changing things, and how can you advocate for change? I feel like advocacy as a word sometimes scares people into inactivity. We've all seen the emails that encourage us to reach out to our representatives to enact the change we want to see as taxpayers. But that can also sometimes be easier said than done, taking that first step. Reaching out to representatives can be a great way to get your point across. This is definitely a route that we encourage anybody that would like to take. However, we thought we would give you a few other options and examples of advocacy around affordable housing and what you can do. Habitat for Humanity International is actually working on a 5-year advocacy campaign called Cost of Home, through which local habitat organizations like us, partners, volunteers, and community members across the country, they're all working together so that 10 million people can have access to an affordable home, and they're helping to create policies that will allow these same people to meet their most basic needs. However, we couldn't accomplish this without the multitudes of volunteers that we need to do the hard work of lobbying for change on all levels, local, state, and federal. With the Cost of Home campaign, there are a few ways that you can be involved, such as sending a traditional email to Congress. You can also pick some more direct ways. On their Cost of Home page, you can sign up for advocacy emails to receive opportunities to advocate in your area if you're not from around Harrisonburg and Rockham County. You can also download graphics to customize and share on social media to show your support. Why is home ownership and affordable housing so important to you? If you want to work on a local level here in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, contact us to learn how to be an advocate for Central Valley Habitat. In upcoming episodes, we'll talk about ways that you can advocate around our community and also how to get the yes that we're looking for to volunteers, donations, and contributions of any kind. If you'd like to see these opportunities, visit habitat.org/cost-of-home for a national level or contact our office to be part of our advocacy program. For those that really want to get into the nitty-gritty of housing advocacy, there is an entire advocate's guide on the National Low Income Housing Coalition's website that has a lot of useful information tailored to your route through advocacy. According to their website, whether you are a student in an urban planning program, a new employee at a housing agency or community development corporation, or a seasoned affordable housing advocate looking for a refresher on key programs, this section will give you the overview of housing programs and advocacy tools that you need to be a leader in the affordable housing movement and to advocate effectively for social justice housing policy for low-income Americans. With this guide, you're going to get an overview of some of the programs available to organizations like ours, such as the Self-Help Homeownership Opportunity Program, SHOP for short. We actually have some of those funds this year to work on some buildings on Virginia Avenue. You'll also get a list of state and local housing trust funds, guides to lobbying, and how to work with the media. We'll talk a little bit more about this guide in future episodes when we cover all the amazing programs we utilize to make our mission possible in the community. You can find this guide on the Coalition website, nlihc.org/explore issues. And all the links mentioned in today's episode will, of course, be available in the show notes on supporting podcast platforms and on our Anchor page. So be sure to check that out if you don't catch the links while you listen. If you decide to become a Habitat advocate with us, there are a few ways to spread the word to others. There are many ways to spread the word to others. We provide printed and online resources to all of our advocates to share with the local community, as well as invitations to our events and fundraisers, plus support from staff for larger presentations. You can connect with your faith group, civic group, within your place of business, online, and just about anywhere that you can spread the word about the importance of affordable housing to families in our community and all over the United States. Advocates are also welcome to volunteer on our construction sites and be part of one of our 7 committees. We have something for everyone, no matter what your level or your experience. Commitment is also not an issue. Most of our committees meet once a month for maybe an hour, and a lot of our volunteers come and work when and how they want to. So that's always an option. With that, we're coming to the end of today's episode, so we'll finish it out with a quote from Samantha Power. All advocacy is, at its core, an exercise in empathy. The takeaways from today are that the affordable housing crisis is very real, and it's affecting millions of families all over the country, creating a cycle of poverty that very few can afford to escape. We need advocates like you to help spread the word so a nonprofit like ours can start to solve this issue. Thank you for listening today. Come build with us over on Facebook and Instagram at Central Valley Habitat or at Central Valley VA on Twitter. We are always looking for volunteers, so if you think Habitat is for you, check us out on our website, www.centralvalleyhabitat.org. I've been your host today, Kirsten Pittman with Central Valley Habitat for Humanity. Let's get out there and build. Until next time.